And I'm gonna go ahead and put the agenda just in the chat link so everyone can look. This is just, this happens to be the evaluators folder. So you'll be coming back to this link often. I can share it one more time just in case those who just joined, but I guess I'll just turn it over to our chair.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Not much from me today. This is the pre-scoring meeting with just some of the logistics and a little bit of a primer to know what to expect as we take on the challenge before us. It's a big number, some big numbers that Patrick's going to share as far as the applications, not just the number of applications, but the types of applications and the amounts that we're looking at. So just want to thank you all for participating and being willing to take part in the scoring process. And also just a big thanks to Patrick and the staff for all of the hours and hours of work it takes to get us to this point. Just so that the scoring committee knows, it does take a significant amount of time to sort through and just determine eligibility and category and help some of the applicants work through the process of getting eligible if they're close and should be. And also to inform those that aren't eligible. So just a big thanks to Patrick and Tara and Noemi and I think Emily also involved. But yeah, a lot of work, and so recognition where recognition is due. But I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you, Patrick, to take us forward and through the rest of the agenda.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Director Curry. And then does everybody have the link? Like, can you all see the agenda? I'm happy to keep it shared. Otherwise, I'll just kind of reference it over on the side. So it is just in the link. I can just send it one more time for anybody who just joined. So this link is actually to your 2025 evaluators folder. It's incomplete right now, and we'll be populating it with a lot more stuff as we get going. But it does have kind of the stuff we need right now. So I think maybe first, I think that maybe we just do two quick introductions. First, Jordan, I'd love to give you the chance to introduce yourself. We'll all get to chat and meet better at the scoring meetings, but you can introduce yourself to everybody. I guess maybe don't need to go around in a circles. And then also I wanted to allow Noemi a chance to introduce herself to the whole committee. So Jordan, if you want to just give us a quick little how you doing?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Jordan Washburn, and I work at RE Bicycles, recently shortened from FESRE. So been in the outdoor industry, specifically the biking industry, for over 20 years, and love doing all things outdoors. We do horses too. I'm also a falconer and love hiking and backpacking and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, honored to be here and excited to get to know you guys more over the years.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Well, I don't think we have any Falcon applications this year, but we'll try next year to get a few falconing ones. And Noemi, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group?
Okay, I was muted. Sorry about that. Hello. Yeah, my name is Noemi. I'm the new UORIAC administrator. So super happy to be here. I look forward to meeting you all and getting to know you each a little bit better. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me moving forward. I will drop my email in the chat, and yeah, happy to be here.
Great. Well, thank you. So we're going to cover a good amount, probably pretty quickly, but we definitely have a ton of resources for y'all to double check. We'll record this as well. So I think the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot of kind of what we saw this year, and just kind of let us start getting excited about that. And then we're going to turn it over to Nicole, who's our Attorney General rep, for a little OPMA training. So to start, I think everybody remembers last year we had roughly $16 million in requests, and we had roughly $16 million to give out, right? So in a sense, it was like, okay, we can almost award every single one of these. Yeah, this year we kind of smashed that. So if we kind of pull up, just want to give you a snapshot of what our actual, so these were all the grants that came in. I just want to pull down to this one total though. This year we have 211 applications and we have $43 million requested. So last year, so it's quite an increase. We've roughly 34 million in requested through just kind of our UORG programs, and then we have 13 million with that new Community Parks and Rec grant. I think 91 applications coming in from Community Parks and Rec, and that was after quite a bit of work on our end just to make sure the applications that are coming to you are vetted. So we did turn back a number of applications, whether through budgets, ineligible projects, just that's just part of that compliance work that we'll do on this end before you see the application. So the number whittled down from about 50 million to 43 million is what's going to go in front of you all. So look forward to a huge year. A lot more to talk about this, but for now, I just want to kind of turn it over to Nicole to kind of do a bit of our Open Public Meetings Act training, conflict of interest training, and all that good stuff. So I'll be managing the slides for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. If we could
Okay.
start off on the Utah Public Officers and Employees Ethics Act. So my name's Nicole Hanna. I've been working with the state for, I think, 15 years now. Prior to that, I was in private practice. I just moved over to DNR from the Department of Agriculture and Food, where we had about 30 boards and commissions that we provided training and legal support for. Just to let you guys know, I am your legal counsel to the extent that everything that you guys do is consistent with the Department of Outdoor Recreation. To the extent that it's not, then we will have a conversation, and probably Shane will represent the department and I will represent the committee, or the other way around. A little bit about myself. I moved here in 2004. My husband was in Iraq for a year and I got bored. So I applied to law school, and he said, you go anywhere you want, just make sure there are mountains so I can go climbing. And I said, okay, no problem. So we moved out here. We'd been through a road trip through Utah, fell in love with it. And 22 years later, or 21 years later, we are still here and loving every bit of it. And I echo all of the sentiments about outdoor recreation. We have horses, and we'd go camping all the time. And I just think it's really cool to be able to represent you guys. So thanks so much. So very quickly, we're going to be covering a lot of stuff. And in order to cover this thoroughly, it takes a ridiculous amount of time that you guys don't really have today, and time that I think could be better spent doing what you guys are here to do, which is your pre-scoring. So we are going to go through and kind of hit the highlights of all of this big, long packet that I gave you. That being said, if you guys have any questions or concerns, you're welcome to ask me during the meeting. The other thing is if you'd like, you can always reach out to Patrick afterwards and he can get you in touch with me. And if you have individual questions that you'd like answered, I have no problem going through with you in great detail. There's just no way to cover all of this stuff without taking a very long amount of time. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about, and I'm going to go through this quickly. So, just bear with me, and if it's too fast, somebody just speak up and tell me to slow down, because I am a East Coaster, and so I talk very, very quickly. So the Utah Public Officers and Employees Ethics Act, this one is important as a border committee member because of a couple of things. And the first thing is that you basically want to make sure that there aren't conflicts of interest that you guys are subject to, or that you have, and then you're making decisions about other things that could impact you because it's a conflict. So you have two different categories, actual and perceived. An actual conflict is defined under Utah code. It's very specific, and it has to do with how much of an ownership interest and stuff you have in an organization or something that's economically impacted by the decisions that you're making in the border committee. So what you have to do if you have an actual conflict, like for example, if you're a member of one of the organizations that has applied for a grant, you do need to disclose that, and you would need to abstain from voting on that. Oh, sorry, I was reading Patrick's message. Okay, so and basically it extends to your immediate family members too. So the reason why that is so that people can't transfer assets in the name of their spouse or their children and somehow get away with doing something unethical. And what you really have to ask is any decision that you're making, can it be can it financially or economically impact you either positively or negatively? And if there is such an impact for an organization that you have, for example, a 10% or greater interest in or business, or if it affects one of your close family members, then that's something that you would have to abstain from, okay? Those are actual conflicts. Now, the difference between actual conflicts and perceived conflicts is just that. It's an issue of perception. So the way that I like to explain it is, if the Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News got a hold of this, would they say, hey, this looks hinky, even if it's not actually hinky? And you do not have to recuse yourself from any decisions that you make, but you do have to publicly declare in the meeting that you feel like this might be a conflict of interest, and you either need to abstain from making a decision on that, or you need to make some kind of statement to the effect that you believe that you can make a decision or make a recommendation that, and you believe it will not adversely affect your objectivity or independence in making that informed decision. And that disclosure needs to be done before any kind of a vote or discussion on the matter. You still can participate, you can vote, but it's very important that you make that disclosure before the event actually happens. Okay, so those are the two different kinds of conflicts that we've covered. So we're going to move down into prohibited activities. Most of you guys know this stuff backwards and forwards. It's really common sense. So if you guys get protected information, for example, somebody's name, social security number, anything that you think to yourself, gosh, I wouldn't really want this to get out to the public if it was my information. And of course, there are statutory requirements as to what is private or controlled or protected. You guys don't need to worry about that as much, but what you do need to worry about is improperly disclosing that. And so what I would say is, when you're doing your scoring and everything, just remember that everything that you put up on the screen becomes public information. So to the extent that it can be aggregated, or to the extent that any personal identifying information can be removed, that's ideally the way that we like to go forward, because if there is private information and it's disclosed during a public meeting, it's no longer private, it then becomes public. And obviously, you guys can't use your position on this board to further your own personal economic interests, to secure privileges, or to secure exemptions or any kind of benefits for yourself or someone else. And you also can't accept outside employment that's likely to impair your independent judgment or interfere with your ethical responsibilities in performing these committee duties. If you feel like something like that might apply to you, again, please reach out to me. We don't have to cover it in front of everybody else. I understand that some people would like to keep things private, and that is completely understandable. All right, so gifts. So basically, be careful when you are accepting any kinds of gifts. I know that it rarely happens with you guys, but to the extent that you think that you're getting something because someone expects something in return, which is what we call a quid pro quo, or trying to improperly influence you, you guys know that you shouldn't be doing that. There are a couple of exceptions to what you're allowed to take as a board or committee member. One of them is an occasional non-monetary gift that's $50 or less, awards and loans made in the course of business. Now, in the law in Utah, that conflicts a little bit with the Governor Huntsman's executive order where he included non-monetary gifts of $50 or less as things that you cannot accept. So again, if you get in that situation, please reach out. I'm more than happy to walk you through it and to give you advice as to what I think that you can or cannot accept. Now, I don't speak for the Attorney General's office. I just speak for me as an Assistant Attorney General. Some Assistant Attorney Generals are going to tell you that you can't accept anything. I think that's probably a little bit unrealistic, considering how you have to do business. So there are different, so if you, for example, if you're going out to lunch, try to keep it within the Utah per diem rate to the extent that you can. I think that's fairly safe. But I don't interpret the executive order as prohibiting something like that. You can accept rewards or prizes or plaques or, you know, a Christmas gift. And again, if you guys receive a gift and you are uncomfortable with it, the other nice thing that you can do is you can bring it to your big scoring meeting and you can share it with everybody. And that way everybody gets the gift and it doesn't count against you. But the other thing is you can't, so you can request donations. We're going to go down to donations. You can request donations, but you can't demand them, and you can't kind of present it as a fait accompli, right? So just be careful when you're requesting donations, for example, for people that want to come and maybe present to you or show you all of the cool things that their entity can do, and that's fine and completely above board. But you can't require it. Okay, so when we talked a little bit before about receiving compensation for assisting an entity in a transaction over which you guys have this kind of regulatory authority, and I know that you guys are an advisory board, but we're going to call it regulatory authority or advisory authority anyway. And the nice thing that you can do is if you have a potential conflict that you're concerned about, we have departmental policies at the Department of Natural Resources. We have policies at the Attorney General's office, and you can file a sworn statement disclosing the gift or disclosing the business interest. And then that way, you get a little bit of a breather from any kind of allegation in the future that you didn't disclose it or that you had an interest that perhaps you should have disclosed and didn't. So we have a form that you can fill out. Those do become public records, and they are stored by the Attorney General's office as well as the Department of Natural Resources, and anyone from the public can look at those. They are done by year, so if for some reason your situation has changed since you filled out your initial conflict form when you joined this committee, please update your form and please talk to me if you need to do that. And then obviously, like, don't take bribes. I mean, that one's pretty straightforward, okay? And the penalties are pretty straightforward too. It's either a misdemeanor or a felony. And what I like to say is in my boards and commissions that I've done for 15 years, we've never had an issue with this. Please don't be the first one. It's not very much fun for anybody, and it's really not worth it. So we're here, come and talk to us first. All right, so that's conflict of interest in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to Open Public Meetings Act? All right, seeing glazed looks on everybody's faces, I will move on to the Open and Public Meetings Act. I know this is your favorite part of the day, you guys. Come on, you got to stick with me on this one. All right,
Nicole, if
policy.
I can, I just wanted to ask Paul, our AV guy, can you, if there's anybody in the waiting room, can you let them in? I think I just got a text, so we might have someone waiting, but I don't have ownership. But please continue, Nicole. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so open and public meetings. Why do we have them? Well, because we're funded with taxpayer money. And if you're like me, you want to know where your taxpayer money is being spent. You may not agree where it's being spent, but generally it's a good thing that we take as a government and as a state and as a committee, which is part of that. You take your actions openly and you conduct your deliberations openly. Okay, so you guys are clearly a public body that is subject to the Open and Public Meetings Act. We could go back and forth about whether it's an advisory capacity or not, but the fact that you guys get per diem and stuff theoretically, I think kind of knocks that one out of the park. So we're just going to go forward with that. So what you have to have in order to be subject to the act, which you are, you have to be convened with a quorum present, and you have to be convened by an authorized person and for the purpose over which the body has jurisdiction or advisory power. Okay, and this includes workshops, executive sessions, site visits, and traveling tours. The rules for those types of things are a little bit different. If we ever have that situation, if you ever guys want to do a site visit, I'll walk you through what you need to do and any notes and stuff that you need to keep. But the other thing that is important is that there's a difference between a meeting, which is 2 or more people, and just a chance or social gathering. A social gathering kind of thing is fine, doesn't count as a meeting. And something, because you're not you're not meeting for the purposes of what the board is doing. I just would be careful about discussing board things in that type of situation so that someone may not overhear you and consider that an ethical issue. If you guys will remember from the Attorney General's office that one of our prior Attorney Generals got in trouble because he decided to discuss something very, very sensitive and confidential in the middle of a Krispy Kreme, and somebody next to him recorded the entire thing. So just word to the wise, maybe don't discuss things in Krispy Kremes. All right, so what you guys have to do in order to comply. So you have to have 24 hours advance written notice. And if you're going to meet more than once a year, if like you have a regularly scheduled biannual meeting or something, then you need to also put those notice requirements up. We have notice requirements through the public notice website, and primarily most of that stuff is taken care of administratively through the Department of Outdoor Recreation. So you guys don't have to worry about it too much. I'm just going to go over a couple of the things that you have to do. Obviously, you have to post on that public website. You have to have an agenda that is reasonably specific as to what you're going to talk about. And that's just so that the public so that something doesn't slip through that the public could say later, hey, we didn't know about that and we wanted our voices to be heard. For times where you guys maybe don't have a quorum, you can still meet and discuss anything that you'd like, but you can't make any votes or decisions on that. If you make a mistake, the nice thing is that in the next meeting, you can ratify the decisions that you made in the meeting before that. I know you guys usually only meet once a year, but it's also a really nice little way to get yourselves out of, any kind of issues that may occur. And all aspects of the meeting, discussions, motions, and deliberations, they need to be open to the public. I understand you guys don't go into closed meetings to the extent that you might need to. There are a different set of rules for those, and we can go into that if there's ever a need to do that, and I can walk you through that process, but I'm not going to do it now because it just takes a lot of time, and I actually don't think it's particularly relevant to this group of people. So you need to take written minutes and an audio or video recording of the meeting, which you guys are doing, and you need to include the date, time, and place of the meeting, everyone who's present, the substance of the matters discussed, a record by individual member of votes taken, name of a person from the public or from whoever you invite that provided testimony or any kind of other information to the group, and any information that any member of the board or committee asks to be entered into the minutes or recording. So the key with this for you guys is for things like, I would call them like procedural things. So for example, approving minutes. You guys don't need to really do that by roll call vote, but the preference, but when you guys do anything that is substantive, so if you're voting on, for example, funding a grant, then we need to do a roll call vote. And the preference from the governor's office is that everybody can be seen when they do that. So if you are, for some reason, if you've stepped away, please step back, turn on your video camera, turn on your microphone, and make sure that we can see you vote. And then your pending written minutes, so the minutes that you have created but have not yet formally approved, you need to make public within 30 days of the meeting. And the approved minutes and anything else that you have handed out at the meeting, including the recording, needs to be posted to the public notice website within 3 business days of approval. Okay. So again, anything that is distributed at the meeting are public records, and all of those things need to be posted. Okay, we are going to skip through. I think I talked about this before. You guys can individually record these meetings. A member of the public can do so. That's not a problem. But you guys should also have your own official one that is the official record or transcript of the meeting. Okay, electronic meetings. You guys can meet electronically. You need to the only thing that you need to make sure that you have is an anchor location with somebody there in case a member of the public wants to come. If you do want to have a location that's different from the anchor location, we can also do that and do it electronically, but there's a process that we go through in order to do that. And if that ever happens, again, we can walk you through that. In terms of disruptions, I understand that everybody wants very much for this to be a public process and to have the public involved. However, please don't feel that if someone is being disruptive or inappropriate in the meeting, that they have to be allowed to stay in the meeting. You can kick them out of the meeting and just make a determination as to why you did that. We had one situation when we were using Google where someone hacked into it, and I don't think I can ever get those pictures out of my head, but we've only ever had it once and we were able to stop that fairly quickly. I don't anticipate that being a problem. And again, if you guys violate this, then, you know, there are all kinds of legal ramifications. So we just do everything that we can to make sure that you don't. And if you have questions about it, again, call and reach out. So that's what I have on open and public meetings. Does anybody have any questions? It's all super crystal clear, right? Great. Okay. All right. The last thing that we're going to talk about really, really quickly, and this is the Government Records and Access Management Act. And what we refer to it as GRAMA, we refer to the Open Meeting Act as OPMA, just to let you know if I ever use that, that's what that means. So for GRAMA, basically, a record is a book, letter, document, paper, map, plan, photograph, film, card, tape, recording, electronic data, or other documentary material, regardless of its physical form or characteristics, that is prepared, owned, received, or retained by a governmental entity. And the information in the original is reproducible by photocopy or other mechanical or electronic means. Now, what a record does not include is like a personal note that you make to yourself about something, a temporary draft, and this last one is funny because of the lawsuit that just went through about daily calendars, but daily calendars actually are not records under GRAMA. We are working through that. So the big thing I want to say about GRAMA, there are two things. So the first thing that I need to say is that what you need to remember is do not write or record anything in an email, voicemail, text message, or similar communication medium concerning committee business that will make you feel uncomfortable if printed in the newspaper or on social media or wherever. And you should presume that all of your communications will find their way to the media, social media, or to someone that doesn't like you or doesn't like what you guys do. I think what you guys do is great, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that is very angry about it. There always is somebody. So the other thing is that these provisions apply to both your personal and work communication devices. So if we've given you a state phone, usually we don't do that with committee and board members, but just please know that if you do use your personal phone, then that is subject to GRAMA. If there's something that's non-responsive, if we get a GRAMA request and we need to take your phone, we can usually clone it very quickly, or alternatively, if you don't have anything on there that you think is responsive, you can sign an affidavit that says that you don't think that it's that you don't have anything responsive, and that will suffice for purposes of GRAMA. The one thing that I also want to say is we've had issues in the past with people texting during the committee meetings. If you guys are going to text, you know, obviously, like if you're texting about your dog getting sick or your kids needing to be picked up, that's not what I'm talking about. But it's a very, very poor practice to text each other about anything that's happening in the committee or in the meeting while you're in the meeting, because those things become part of the public meeting. So if you could refrain from doing that, I think it would make everybody's life a lot easier. And it's significantly less embarrassing for everybody involved. So I promised Patrick that I would take less than a half an hour, and I think I am like 5 minutes under that. So any questions about anything that I've said? Are we good? All right, so I got a thumbs up, and right, you guys go forth and do your wonderful work, and I will stop talking. So this is it for the year. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. I don't know how many, maybe some of you remember, I feel like maybe 3 years ago, we had an OPMA training that took like well over an hour. So this was amazing. Thank you so much. Great. Well, I guess with the chair's permission, we can just go ahead and hop back into our agenda. So again, this is just I'm going to put this in chat just for you all. So this is the evaluator folder link. Just wanted to make sure. I know I put one in, but I didn't know if that was just the agenda. But we do have the agenda right in here. So yeah, I mean, I think now that we've kind of gone through OPMA, we've gone through kind of the first numbers. I think really what I want to do is take opportunity just to kind of go through these, answer any questions, make sure you're prepared. You kind of know the new updates, you know how to access the portal, and you know kind of what resources we've provided you. So the first thing we want to do is kind of just an overview of all of our grant programs. And I'm going to hop into our evaluator handbook. I'll be doing this often just because this is my subtle way to be like, hey, check this awesome resource out. It's going to give you a lot of information. So this year we have our 4 grant programs. So here they are. So first, UORIAC Tier 1. I think we're all really familiar with this. This is kind of the flagship. This was the start. This is I think year number 11 now with it, right? So I think a few of you, maybe Cameron, Lincoln, Des, Tom, and maybe some others have been here for almost this whole 10 years. So again, thank you all for your service on this. But yeah, UORIAC Tier 1, new infrastructure. I think we in previous years have tried to make allowances for more kind of park, open spacey style projects to be folded into this. This year with kind of the other new program, or the new program we have, the Community Parks and Rec, we really did try to focus park applications, park adjacent applications towards that. You will find there are a few kind of plaza, open space, UORG applications. And so these are the opportunities that we want to send some of these to you so you can kind of make the decision. And just to remind you, I think last year we had amphitheaters that on our end, we weren't sure. It was adjacent, but we wanted to give it to you. Ultimately, I think we funded one and denied another, but that kind of gave us permission to, like, okay, we can at least consider these now. So you may find some that seem like they're kind of, maybe in that liminal space between, and again, we just really value how you want to perceive these and how we should use these going forward. So UORIAC Tier 1, just new infrastructure. New is the most important word. We did increase the award amount. As you can see, it goes up to $500,000 now. I think last year, what was it up to? I think our regional asset tier was 500,000. This year goes up to 500,000. So increasing our demands, we're up to $1 million with a total request on the regional asset tier. So we'll just go ahead and pivot to there. Regional asset tier is now up to $1 million. So, when before I said we have $43 million in requests, there's good reason. We are making policies to try to get more requests, but to meet people where they're at, right? And so we have our county-based matching scale. I've got that in the evaluator handbook, but we also increased the award. So these combinations plus the new Community Parks and Rec grant, we are reaching more people, and we are feeling a bigger need. So I think that's just great. But same thing with the regional asset tier. This is new infrastructure. I think one thing that we put on the application this year, I can't remember if it was on it last year, but we're asking our applicants who are applying for this level of funding to define how this project is a regional asset. I think that's really important to hear from them. And if that was a request you all had, that was a great point. So we do look forward to hearing how they want to describe this as a regional asset tier. And then, as you know, all of our regional asset tier applicants will need to present for that 5 minutes and then 5-minute Q&A during the actual scoring meeting. So we'll get all of those organized soon. And then we have our mini grant. Same thing as new infrastructure, but this is $500 to $30,000. These are smaller. I can't remember the exact amount. I think maybe we had 16. These are all just smaller tickets. We don't want somebody who just needs $20,000 to go through the same amount of work as somebody who's asking for $1 million. So try to meet them there. And then the Community Parks and Rec grant. This one, this is such a need. I think we were clearly aware because of how many applications in the past we have denied because they were for like really traditional parks and rec. But we opened it up and the response has been just overwhelmingly excited. $13 million in requests for just this program, 92 applications for just this program. We will talk at some point when we debrief and as you kind of engage with this process, but we're already talking about like, would it be better to actually kind of break this out of UORG, have a subcommittee set up just to kind of ease up on how many evaluations you're going to do? So really looking forward to kind of how we debrief coming out of this year and what you think is going to be, the best for your time and expertise. We want to be very mindful of how busy you are. And, we also want to take advantage of just all of your experience and how much you know. But I think the Community Parks and Rec grant, we're going to see a lot of pickleball. You'll see some like bathroom restorations, but then you'll see some like really like full scale park creations. And, the application was written in a way to kind of elicit what I thought was like the dream responses, somebody who's building a new site and they have a lot of good information about how this park is really going to mean something, whether it's community connection, environmental sustainability, just a lot of aspects. But what I found reviewing some of these, it's difficult for somebody who is just resurfacing a pickleball court to talk at that level that maybe I was hoping for in the application. So when you are reading this, I just want to give you, temper expectations. You may see some applicants on like a pickleball or like a bathroom restoration, at a park where their responses do seem to get a little repetitive. And I think it's just the nature of the application was written for kind of that gold standard, that really all-encompassing project. And some of them are just not that. And so it's difficult for them to sell a bathroom in the same way it's easy to sell, a brand new asset that's going to have all these opportunities. So keep that in mind. Again, this is our first year running this. So as all things here, we just want to improve. It's an iterative process. So looking forward to getting your feedback after you've spent some time with this and how we can best tailor this to the actual needs and the applicants. One resource, I have this here in your evaluator handbook, but it's ParkServe. We gave this to all of our applicants as an opportunity for them to have a tool to kind of understand what do parks mean, and just to pull it up on my sheet. So this is the actual map. So if we just say like where we are, if we just go to like Salt Lake City, you'll get a good opportunity here just to see some of these measurables, kind of snapshots. And this is an incomplete resource. There's a lot of rural communities that aren't on here, so we can't, this is not like our be all measurement. This is one tool in that entire, like toolbox that we have. But for you all, it could be really nice, when we're looking at parks and particularly like kind of more populated areas, and it's not every rural area is not on here, but there are some missing, you'll find. But it will just help you identify, priority areas for new parks. There's things on air quality, income, race, over 65, just a lot of demographics, a lot of information you can pull from this. This is hosted by the Trust for Public Lands. Again, this is a living resource. I encourage on the application, any applicant from a small town that maybe is not on here to reach out and try to give them some data and like, let's get some of these rural communities on this if they're not already. But just want that, you to have that, just know the link is in the evaluator handbook so you can access this website. And then just in case, when we look at the folder, I have essentially a Word document that all it is just the URL. So you always will have that just right there in the evaluator handbook. So going back to it I guess that's the end of our how did I forget about RRI? Darling RRI. So again, restoration grant. This is, pretty classic restoration grant. I think what we found this year with, just CPR, we had new parks kind of trying to go into UORG. We had a restoration of parks trying to go into RRI. We really did try to push all park applications towards CPR. So this ideally should kind of that traditional recreation, we're thinking like high use summer areas, day use, trails, water infrastructure, just restoring recreation infrastructure on public lands. But, I think we saw over $4 million in requests for RRI. So pretty standard year for RRI. This is just a really, really important, popular program. So that's our grant programs. And then I think maybe I should just say, if anybody has any questions, feel free just to like tap hand raise. I mean, because obviously I want to get as much of your input as I can. And then back to, so kind of, I guess let's look at some of our new policies. Again, going to our evaluator handbook because it's got it all in there. So our important new policies, number one, Community Parks and Rec grant, right? Huge new one, new program. Can't wait to hear what you all say about it. But this awards up to $200,000. At the last time we met was kind of us approving this going forward, and we had to decided to allocate $2 million to this. If you go into the program guide, which is also in your evaluator folder, you can read kind of like the full page description of it. It talks a little bit more about the eligibility of certain projects, what's not eligible. But then again, just a shout out to the staff over here. We really sift through every application, every attachment, every scope of work, and we try to make sure what's coming into you is perfectly eligible, because we don't want you to have to worry about is like, is that a little too much design? Like, what's going on here? Hopefully everything you have is perfect, it's vetted and good to go. But this does award $200,000, and it uses our county-based matching scale. And so just to remind everybody, this is the county-based matching scale. You can find it in the program guide. I probably have screenshotted the same bit so many times it's getting a little blurry, but you can just see them here. But we'll use this with every single grant this year. And so increased request amounts, we already talked about this. We've been increasing them, I think almost every year, just a little bit and a little bit. I think right now, these are our total. So regional assets here, that 500 to 1 million. UORG tier 1 up to 500. RI, we did increase RI as well. That went from 200K to 250. CPR up to 200,000. And the mini grant also was increased to 30,000. I think previously it was 20,000. So seeing those, and then that county-based match scale, previously, mini grant had fallen out of it, regional asset tier had fallen out of it. This year, all grants will now use a county-based matching scale. And then the other little wrinkle was the suggested county-based matching scale. So, I think a lot of this came from a few different applications over the years. I think one specifically that I'm thinking of is West Valley, where, they were having trouble meeting that 3-to-1 regional urban asset or regional asset tier urban match, and we've kind of done away with that, that overmatch on that one. But it did make us kind of consider, what does the county-based matching scale mean for a community that maybe does not have the advantages that their county shares? We'll see like small communities in Washington County, for example, much like here at Salt Lake County, where they just don't have the same access to resource. So we want to give them an opportunity to at least request coming in lower. I think there might only literally be 1 or 2 over the entire 211 that are asking to come in under. On the application, there is a question underneath the funding request. They'll identify which percentage they come in, but there's a question. If you are coming in under, please give us that need statement. So when you're doing your evaluation, one of the questions, which maybe most of you probably won't use because there's only this 1 or 2, but there is a question on your evaluations that just says, having read the need statement, do you want to consider this one still with the lower match? So you're essentially kind of giving permission to move it forward within our scoring. But that's that. And then the final is just our pre-build. So this I think it will be my 6th cycle now running grants, and just the amount of applications I've turned around because they had maybe like a $1,000 design on there, or a little bit of engineering. Some of this stuff that because traditionally UORG was only essentially just shovel ready, shovel in the ground infrastructure. We saw so many of these on applications. It's clear it's a need, and these are not design that's happening way before the contract. This is stuff that happens within the contract. So still every expense that can be eligible needs to happen within that contract period. But we just wanted to give an opportunity for some of these last kind of buttoning up, planning, design, engineering expenses. And so rather than try to come up with like a kind of a convoluted formula, we essentially just said 25% of their match can go to pre-build. And so when we think of their match, if they're matching $20,000, it's only 25% of that. It's not 25% of the total project cost or the request. It is purely their match, and a quarter of that can go to these pre-builds. So you will see some design, some planning, some of these stuff's on the budget, but we have vetted it. Again, it is always underneath that 25% of their match number. So that's it for our big policies. And then did want to just give us a quick reminder from last year is that federal and state agencies, as of last year, can apply to every single one of our grants. Formerly it was nothing, then it was just RRI. Everything is open now. However, all federal agencies still have to meet that 1-to-1 match. There is no county-based matching scale for our state and federal partners. So just keep that in mind. And then we do have our county-based match right here. So going back to our agenda. So, I think this was just kind of the update on the 2025 UORG cycle requests and funding. I did kind of talk a little bit about I just want to make sure I pull up the right one, about the request amount, right? So we had $43 million. This year, I think last year we had 16 million. I think this year we have 16, maybe 17 million. We'll get that exact figure. But I think we're looking at about 17 million, I think is where we landed. Maybe Director Curry can step in. I know there was like that additional million that may be coming from the legislature through that or Adventure Commission. But so that's kind of where my only confusion is. So we're looking at 16 or 17 million. So a lot of funding coming out of this program. But our demand is huge. So it's going to be really competitive, and that's good. That's where we want to be. I don't know how you all felt, but last year having the same amount of requests as available funding, you just know that we could breed a more competitive environment and then really make sure we're awarding just the best projects. And I think this year, I think you're going to see some really exciting projects. I think last year was an interesting year. It didn't feel like there was that, like some of those really truly unique, exciting projects. And this year we have some really, really cool projects. A lot of good stuff happening in this state right now. And then with that, so one thing I do want to talk about that you're going to see is our Land and Water Conservation Fund and our Recreational Trails Program. As you know, those are big matches. Those really are important funding sources to use for applicants to kind of leverage funding. Rather than me just keep talking, I wanted to invite our actual federal grants administrator, Evan, just to give you kind of a quick update on what to expect with those. So if Evan, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, hey everybody. I'll step in real quick. Thank you for the introduction, Patrick. My name is Evan Beich. I am the federal grants guy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our federal programs and how they will interact with the applications, with our stateside applications this year. I don't know if anybody watches the news. There's been some different things happening at the federal level this year that we're kind of working to accommodate. So things will operate a little bit differently, again, on the state side. Something to consider with our new programs, with this new CPR program, is just how our federal grants will be interacting with those. Particularly, I'm going to start with the RTP, and then I'll jump into the LWCF here. But first of all, I just wanted to discuss the security of our funding coming in, the availability of our federal funds. The RTP funding apportionment has been secured. We do have our about $1.5 million for the RTP available, ready to be spent. And something that's going to be a little bit different about that process this year. I know historically RTP has been we'll see projects that apply to both the RTP and to UORG. And historically, those have gone to your committee firsthand. Whereas you will select UORG projects, and typically those that are selected for UORG, usually we'll just go ahead and honor those with the RTP award as well. That's historically. This year, we're actually, just due to some scheduling conflicts, the RTP will actually be scored beforehand. So when you receive, I think we have about 10 applications for both UORG and RTP. And those RTP sections of those, so just the RTP will come to our committee before going to the ORIC committee. So just something to be aware of. You'll actually already see which RTP projects have been selected before you award those UORG projects. So just something to keep in mind there. Another thing to keep in mind with the Land and Water Conservation Fund this year, so switching gears to that grant, that funding has not been secured yet. We do very much believe that we will be receiving our apportionment coming later this summer or this fall. We do not know the exact number of what that'll look like. We anticipate somewhere between $3 to $5 million for that program. And then again, just like you're seeing RTP often working in connection with our state funded programs, you'll see in those applications, largely for the Community Parks and Recreation Grant, our new program, you'll see a lot of those applicants also applied to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And so some of those utilize a higher matching or anticipated a high match component of their project through that grant program. And again, just something I would be aware of as an evaluator is that that is an equally competitive program. Last year, we awarded about that same $5 million that we anticipate this year. However, we had $20 million in requests. So it's going to be a very competitive program. And just, as you're seeing those applications for CPR, some of those will include LWCF in the budget, and not all of those will be getting selected for the LWCF. So I think that's my main rundown, Patrick. Anything you think I might have missed there?
No, that's great. Yeah, I think, you hit the important parts, which is just that you will see LWCF on some CPR budgets, and as well as maybe 1 or 2 UORG ones, and just know, like, we do plan to run it. It's going to be competitive, and if you do see that, please, reach out, ask us questions. We're happy to help answer, because it may be important if you're looking at a budget and there's 0 unsecured, but they have a huge line item for LWCF. Reach out and talk to us, and we can like kind of walk through and give you our best guess at like, oh, how competitive is that going to be? But yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Evan. Okay, well, with that, moving on back to the old agenda. So now everybody's favorite, I want to review our evaluator handbook and just kind of the whole, the program guide, scoring instructions, just like what do we do now? And so back to this folder, I shared this link with you. Many of you are familiar with kind of what's going on in our evaluator folder, but right now, Noemi is hard at work kind of building out, the individual application. So, so each of you will, I think you have 37 or 38 evaluations. So you have quite a bit. We did give you like what I hoped was about a month this year, which is a little bit more than usual. But if you are curious, if you're just like, 37 wasn't enough, I kind of want to take a dive and look at all of them. This is your opportunity to kind of get those snapshots of like everything that's coming in, even the stuff that you're not reviewing. We'll have like a nice like spreadsheet on top of this, hyperlink some stuff, but this is where you can just kind of hop in. You're like, oh, okay, City Hall Civic Space. You can hop in, you can see the application, you can see kind of like the site plans and review the budgets, and this is stuff that we use during the scoring meeting, but this is just kind of in our evaluator folder. But I think the key stuff for you right now, this program guide. So this is our 2025 program guide. We update it every single year. This is, Anchor Replacement, one of our long-term, grant partners with the Salt Lake Climbers Alliance. But, just go through and, just spend some time with it. You'll catch like here, eligible, ineligible. You'll see some of our old projects, each of the grant program, that has so much information, pages. But yeah, please spend some time in here. I think it'll be really helpful, particularly for those who are newer to the committee. But then this handbook, this is hopefully going to just walk you through everything. But first, so this is just our contact. I hope I have everybody's like organization emails correct. If you notice a mistake, please let me know and I can fix it really quick. But then important dates. And, I think I'm a pretty competent person. My biggest shortcoming is visual design. So if you're like, well, looks pretty poorly visually designed, that's my weakness, and I'm sorry, but I promise it has all the important information, right? So that's the important stuff. So UORG pre-scoring meeting, that's right now. Hey, look at that. We're already one box checked. Due date for all evaluations, Thursday, April 24th. That is a Thursday. And so my hope, we have a scoring meeting on Wednesday and Thursday. So my hope is that we can use that Friday to kind of get us sorted on this end, on our staff end. And then we can use that Monday and Tuesday to get everything prepped. There's a lot of work on our end, just to get this prepped. And, we just need to get that time. So of course, you're going to get a ton of emails from me and Noemi being like, hey, just your gentle reminder, if you have any conflicts with your evaluations, or if you have any trouble and you cannot get them done for whatever reason, please reach out. The sooner the better. Just let us know. Everything is figure outable. I think that's been kind of a awesome little phrase that we've had internally lately, and I think it's very true in that sense. So there's our scoring meeting. This is April 30th, May 1st. We're going to be at the Mill Creek Common. Many of you will get to see the ice ribbon that we helped fund, the climbing wall that we helped fund. And, it happens to be within walking distance to my house. If anyone wants to stop by, see my cat, my garden. I don't know. It's probably not going to look very good April 30th, but, you'll get the idea. For those of you, I know like Aaron's going to be traveling potentially, Lance maybe. For any of you who are wanting to travel and be in person, and of course we want you all in person. It's a wonderful time in person. Let me know. We'll get your travel arrangements sorted and make sure that the state is covering you for those expenses. So all of that we can check in, here soon. But this has important links. I do try to throw these links at you quite often just to make sure it's a very good access. But you have your program guide link here, the grant portal login page right there, and we'll visit that in just one second. But table of contents, you can just kind of see there's some more of the conflict interest OPMA. If you didn't get enough from Nicole's awesome rapid training, you can review it again. Our staff contacts, some of those updates that I already talked about, some of our older ones, but then, what does it mean? What does the UORG program mean? Hopefully we have some of this information in here as well as the program guide, but, we have our objectives, review of the programs, our scoring procedures, right? If you're like, what are they doing on the back end? We're doing a lot. And if you want to learn a little bit more about it, we have here, and then we'll just kind of go past OPMA. and into the individual scoring process. And then as always, if I'm going too fast, if you have any questions, please just hit that raise hand button and I will hear it and I can stop. But so I set up everybody as evaluators, or Noemi did as well, and we have everything assigned. I think like Jordan, for example, this is a brand new one. I set you up. You should have gotten a link, but maybe you haven't seen it. But like Jordan, for example, work with me if you're having trouble getting into the portal. I think Des last year, I ended up setting up as myself because we had an issue there. I think Cameron, I've got you set up on your Gmail account. So over the years, we've kind of figured out a few things in the portal. Again, just talk to me, we'll get it figured out. But I hope right now I've honored kind of how we set it up last year. Jordan, work with me if you're having trouble accessing the portal. But you're going to hop into the portal and you're going to see these 3 buttons. Review is the button you want. And then you're going to see a list of all of your assigned applications. I think one thing to keep in mind, I think last year we may have been on multiple pages. I think we had ultimately missed 1 or 2 evaluations because it was on like a next page. So just be sure when you're on this page, there's this previous next page navigations. I mean, with 37, just make sure you're kind of seeing the full list. We do have our scoring values, low, adequate, shows promise, good, exemplary. We are being scored 1 through 5. I think one comment that came out of last year was like, can we have it so we can score to 0? And unfortunately we can't. I did look into that. I think the only opportunity, and it's just a digital infrastructure thing with our self-coach program. I think the only alternative is like, we could do it 1 through 6, and 1 could be considered a 0, but that just seemed a little complicated. So I hope that's going to be okay, that, we'll just say 1 is low. And then I see Des, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I was just going to say to the new board members, committee members, I know I think my first few years, I gave a lot of people probably higher scores than they deserved. And with $16 million and $43 million worth of applicants, I think you need to score really highly, the really great ones, and help us differentiate in some of those early votes on kind of what's really amazing, and try and have us focus in on the middle group. I'm just, for whatever it's worth, I don't know what that means when you're evaluating, because they're all subjective, but I think that would really help us for those 2 days of scoring.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Des. Yeah. I mean, this is a unique year, right? I mean, I think Tara could probably think of maybe some other years that we've had like so much higher requests than the amount to actually give out. But yeah, we really are going to be focusing a lot on those middle. So yeah, to Des's point, I think Jordan's our only new reviewer this year. But yeah, just do your best. If you have any questions, I mean, this committee is wonderful. Everybody can really chat with you. I'm happy to talk with you too once you're actually diving in specifically. Go ahead, Cameron.
I just wanted to echo what Des said. I think this is a great opportunity for us to do 2 things. 1, really highlight the great projects, but then 2, Patrick and Jason, your team, highlight the growing amount of need out there, because now that we've opened up the eligibility, I think it can tell a really good story to the legislature of the ROI if they were to expand the financing for the program. But I don't want to make a case to the legislature to expand and bring in more tax dollars if we're just talking about low to adequate projects. So I think it's important for us to really make sure we highlight the exemplary ones. And then if there are a bunch of shows promised that don't make the cut this year, let's figure out how to help them reapply next year, improve from shows promised to good or exemplary, and use that as a reason to try to get additional funding going forward.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Cameron. Yeah. And, and I think we have that hope as well. And we definitely will depend on you all to kind of help us. Yeah. I mean, there's some really, really fun projects in here, but we definitely want to award those. And the ones that aren't ready, we have the training to work with them and have them get ready. So go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, and as always, we're trying to be cognizant of the rural communities and their, how maybe theirs aren't, grant applications aren't the best, but look for the shovel-ready aspects of it. And I would note, this is our first year we've had a grant application from Juab County. So
yeah, we got a job finally. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you, Tara. So yeah, with the scoring, and I think it can be a little tricky because, and I still want to figure out what's the best way to arrange this for you all, but you'll kind of maybe score 10 and all of a sudden you were like, wow, those first 10 I had were actually not in any way as good as these next 10. I kind of need to go back and change some of those just to kind of keep some consistency. So with you all, let me know what I can do. I can put any evaluation back into draft. I have the opportunity just to change scores on the back end. So we could, nothing is fixed until kind of the day of the scoring meeting. Well, I guess, and as we saw, we had a few kind of, for some reason, there's that weird malfunction last year where we had a number of zeros. So everything's fixable. But I think some other things just to keep in mind. So the evaluator comments, be mindful what you're writing. We want these to be positive. It's a great service that we provide to every applicant who was not awarded or even was awarded is like, do you want to see your evaluator comments? Just for you all, just to remind you all, your name is not attached to those. It's just a comment from an evaluator. They know it's one of 17 people, but in that case, we're not going to share names, but just be as constructive as you can, and in both senses too. I think I know you'll probably get pretty busy, and sometimes you're just like, it's good, but if it's, especially if it's a low one and it's an applicant that we can help the following year create a better project and a better application, like if you have good feedback, please share that, because that's the most important one that we want to give. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hey, just real quick, I just wanted to add that these are the kinds of things that we get a ton of grammar requests for. So just reiterate what Patrick said. Please try to keep your comments and responses professional.
Yeah, great, thank you. And just so everybody knows, I've always just had really good, like, respectful comments, but it's just always a good reminder, right? And so then after we kind of go through all of our evaluations, then on our team, remember Thursday, April 24th, you'll get plenty of emails about it. That's when we'll take it, we'll compile it, we'll rank it, and kind of give you a bunch of funding breakdowns and really find an opportunity to work. Then the evaluator handbook just kind of goes on, talk a little bit about our final scoring meeting. Remember, 2 days, so much fun. There is that climbing wall that UORIAC funded a couple of years ago. So maybe as part of lunch, we can see if we can get some climbs in over there. Super cool project. But you'll see some more special considerations. Tara had mentioned one with rural. We definitely always want to really make sure that we are supporting rural. I mean, 80% of the Wasatch, population on the Wasatch Front, we're going to the rural Utah. So yeah, let's make sure we focus on those. But you can just kind of read more here. And then, we have our motions. We use our Robert rules. I feel like everyone's pretty comfortable with that. Jason, our chair, does a great job of doing that. And Nicole does a great job of making sure we're doing voice votes when we need to. So it's really a team effort. If you're curious, here's your little Robert's rules graphic. Again, I think it's probably been copied, screenshotted a number of times. So it's getting a little blurry, but maybe one day I'll find like the source document. And then, just some eligibility stuff. So I think the next step I want to do, just to kind of glance back at the agenda, is actually walk you through just a little bit, because I kind of just went through the timeline as well. But so when we were doing the scoring, I thought it could be most helpful if I just like walked you through literally what it looks like with like my own account. So I always set up my own account so I can just send tests and stuff in there. So if I were an evaluator, you go into the login, this link is in the evaluator handbook, on that second page, you'll just log in. This is what our applicants see. So our applicants are going to go to apply, or they're going to go to update if they're doing progress reports. You as evaluators, you're going to go into review. So when you go to review, you'll click there. So I've got these two that I assigned myself. This one's in progress, you can see, and this one isn't started. So if I'm going to go to one that isn't started, I mean, it's the same. This is where you just jump into edit, this little green icon. But you can hop in, and here you go. So every single homepage of these will kind of give you this snapshot, because every grant's just a little different, right, with the categories and things, but this will always show you kind of what the scoring values are, what areas we are actually scoring. And, then you'll always have, my contact, in case you don't know my contact, but then just the high level stuff, the applicant, the amount requested. I think many of you remember, occasionally we'll have applications that will say, like, rather than an applicant, it will say like 501c3 or various, or just someone's first name. And, and that happens. That's like a Salesforce thing. I'm really working hard to correct it this year. That's kind of what you see, but hopefully that won't be an issue. But yeah, you'll just kind of go in, kind of review it all, basic project contact information. We just kind of walk through it all, and then funding request. But once you get to project scoring, well, and I guess this is that one question also, just to bring attention to it. If you are unable to meet your suggested county-based match, please provide justification for being considered for a reduced match requirement. But once we get to project summary is when you'll start scoring. And then this up here, I still am having trouble requiring a score without requiring a comment. I mean, it's required on the back end. I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but I think all I'll do is just ask you to be very, very cautious. Make sure you are recording scores here. That, you know, just add that to your checklist. You record the score. You'll see the total weight. This is where 25% of theirs. It's 1 through 5. And then we'll go to the next, because if I go to the next, it's not going to flag that nothing's scored there. And I try. I'm not exactly sure how to make it so I can score without requiring you to provide comment. So, but you'll go through these sections. So project summary, readiness, economic impact, recreation values, all of these sections are scored. And if you go again to that application overview, this will tell you which sections are being scored. And then required supportive materials and attachments, you know, this whole section is scored, it's 25%. But when you are looking at this, you know, consider how detailed is the site plan? How detailed is the budget? You know, this is where all the site plans, letters of support, land ownership, there's just a lot of additional pieces in here that really should be scored pretty directly. So you can kind of go through and see all of those. And then if applicable, it's not scored, but occasionally there's some pretty important stuff here. You know, wildlife documentation, cultural clearances, NEPAs, permits, engineering, you know, a lot of stuff going on. This one, for example, we do ask, is this part of a master plan? You know, I think we want to really support projects that are part of that master planning, because we really want people to be planned. So this is an example. This one is part of a master plan. But then you go into your comments. Again, these are required. You know, these ones really are required. You cannot submit unless there's something here. This is the opportunity where we can, you know, use good constructive feedback on these, whether it's a strength, whether it's a weakness. And then just a change that we made, maybe it's been 2 years now, funding priority, it's no longer fund or do not fund. It is now high, medium, or low. And then we have just our decision rationale comments, you know, and these are also going to be really, really helpful. And then you can always go to review at the end just to make sure, I guess. Let's see, I'm just going to hit a 1 in all of these. But then if you can go to review, and it will just kind of flag if you've gone through and done scores. So like here, you can see section score 0, section score 0. There's no section score here. So I might poke around in the back end to see, because this is kind of something that's been going on for many, many years. But just please be mindful that you are going to this page, doing the review, and just double checking you have scores on every section. And then this will tell you if you've added those. But so that's the review process. Any questions on that? I mean, I feel like some of you have been doing this for like literally 10 years, and then, you know, everything in between to Jordan are, you know, this is our first day. So, and then other than that, you know, I think one thing on the agenda that I had that I really wanted to just be open for, if we go back, is so I guess, yeah, we did talk the timeline. That's kind of the next agenda point, was just, Thursday, April 24th. I can even send out a calendar invite for everybody if that helps. Just like, hey, last day reviews need to be in. When I say April 24th, it could literally be Friday at 7 a.m. I think the important thing is when we get to work on Friday morning, our hope is everything's done. And then scoring meeting the 30th and the 1st at Mill Creek Common. Again, if you have travel needs, anybody's coming from far, let me know, and we will get you a hotel and per diem, you know, all of that stuff as well. But yeah, so the one thing I kind of wanted just to ask, put it out there, committee requests for the scoring meeting. I know one off the top of my head is 2 TVs. We definitely want to have 2 screens. So I've got 2 screens there. You know, other requests that we've had in the past was like, we had a lot of BST applications this year. Can we make sure that we see those like kind of together? Or like applicant history is something I want to prepare for you this year, so you can look at how applicants have performed with these grants in the past. But just as you're thinking, just off the cuff, does anybody have any thoughts, any things they really want to see that we've done in the past, or maybe have discussed or haven't, that could just help your experience at the scoring meeting? I mean, I'll take that as like, we're just doing a bang up job and everything is perfect.
As you should, Patrick.
Well, thank you guys. Excellent. Well, I mean, I definitely have some ideas. I'm so excited that we do have Noemi here. We're going to work to try to really do some fun stuff this year for you. I don't want to set expectations too high, but our consistent standard of excellence, I think, is very much going to be present. And then maybe just a few additions in some ways that we can kind of start thinking about these things. But other than that, I don't really have much more. Maybe this is an opportunity to turn it back over to our chair, Director Jason Curry.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrick. And just appreciate everybody's willingness to do this from the brand new starting out. Thanks, Jordan, for joining us, by the way. We're really happy to have you. Ari is a Utah icon when it comes to bike brands, and your expertise and your knowledge is going to be really helpful. Big thanks to Noemi as well, being the new main lead staffer for the UORG, and to Nicole, our new legal counsel. This is huge as far as the workload goes. We've talked off and on about parks and open space, pickleball, and all of this stuff. And while it may not fit an exact definition of outdoor recreation, it does help us meet our objectives of providing more opportunities for individuals to be outdoors and to receive the benefits, both from a physical health standpoint and mental standpoint. We had a conversation a little more than a year ago between some folks at the governor's office and with Cameron, with Utah League of Cities and Towns, and thought that there was a real need somewhere for more funding opportunities for municipalities, especially that are what we would call underparked. We just don't have enough green parks, whether it's pickleball demand or sports parks, ball fields, things like that. And so it has created a lot more workload. 37, 38 to score is going to take significant hours. And so Patrick's laid out some good guidance, and for those of you that have been with the process for a long time, you've already got your process outlined, but not something we'll be able to just do in one sitting, or probably even 2 or 3. It's something I plan on spending significant time on a weekly basis to get these all done. One thing I'd recommend is to not finalize any of your application evaluations until the very end, and then you can sort of make sure that as you go through, as you get a kind of a big picture sense for where everything is, you can maybe go back and correct things that were perhaps over or underscored when you were first getting into it. And then a final review, I always want to go through and make sure there aren't any zeros. Like Patrick mentioned, there's seems to be every year, especially with 37, 38 to score, that might leave something off. So go back through and just do a final check to just make sure that we are adequately scoring. And then finally, just we've talked as a committee too about the quality of the applications. It's something that we've continued to try and get our applicants to produce good quality applications. Some of them are better equipped than others. I truly believe that the best way we have to impact or raise the quality of those submissions is by good quality comments and good guidance as we score. So keep that in mind also. And just again, thank you so much for your participation today and over the next 30 days or so. So appreciate it, and thanks to staff as well. With that, is there any public comment or any other questions or comments?
Jason, I'll take comment. I guess I just want to hopefully have people as they're evaluating, and I fully supporting the emphasis on rural Utah, but we get a lot of complaints in the tourism industry that we've got too many people going to rural Utah and causing impacts to county governments on EMS and search and rescue costs. And I would really like it as you're evaluating these, that we're also in the back of our mind thinking, is this helping the economics or just adding people to a rural community? Or is this something that's actually going to drive some spending in those communities to leave some tax dollars to help support those rural communities?
Yeah, thanks, Des. That's an important point. There are numerous lenses through which we should be viewing those, and that is a really important one. Again, it's something to keep in mind. rural Utah, and especially if we want to continue getting the support, the funding support that we do get, we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the right place for those communities specifically, and keeping in mind what the impacts are, that we're providing more benefits and fewer just overall impacts for those aspects that Des mentioned: search and rescue, waste management, transportation, and so on. So yeah, good point. All right. Well, not seeing any further comment and no members of the public wishing to comment, then we'll go ahead and adjourn. All in favor of that motion, go ahead and say aye.
I
And make it official. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody.